So coming up in the Bronx, right? The Bronx is the birthplace of hip hop, right?
Yeah.
At any point, you know where I'm going with this. At any point, did you see yourself getting into, the elements of hip hop? MCing, DJing, b-boying, breakdancing, graffiti. Like, was comedy like always the way that you saw to escape?
No, no way. Yeah, I was a street dude, right? And so I grew up, you know, under some real OGs. So I kind of missed the T connection and all that, and I was in the fever, at a underage age. I was at Disco Fever, the Hilltop in Harlem. I was, there's another joint that used to be on we call that street dang Grant, L Grant Highway, where Keith Sweat used to perform. So I was in the after hours. So I kind of miss a lot of the real hip hop era, club era, But I grew up with Love Bug, Starsky, Diamond D.
Digging in the crates.
Yeah, Love Bug, rest in peace, man. He used to run the cord to the third floor in the park in the projects. He'd run the cord, just rip up the whole PJs, for hours. DJ Theodore and all of them cats would show up, so Fat Joe, I knew Fat Joe since he was a little guy, he came out the same crate, you know what I mean? So yeah, man, I'm a little older than Fat Joe, but yeah, I'm very familiar with the hip hop culture and era, and it has a place in my heart. But I was never like into the whole that hip hop party scene. Like Kid Capri would be at T Connection, I think, up in the Bronx, up on Gun Hill Road. You familiar?
I sure am. Tell you, man, one of my best friends is from the Bronx. So I got an affinity for the Bronx. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Been there a million times. East 233rd, Boston Road, Kingsbridge, East 217th, Grand Concourse. So very, very familiar with the Bronx. The Bronx is still the realest borough in New York. Let's not get it twisted. That's just my estimation.
So when I was coming up, like I said, I got older brothers. So when you want to talk about the whole birth of the hip hop culture,
yeah,
my brother Tim, my oldest brother Scott, my oldest brother Tim, well we called him Ricky, my oldest brother, and Timbo Rock, they were at the forefront with Kool Herc, at the Hevalo, the Shaft, and all that.
Okay.
And no, neither one of us, like Phase 2, he's no longer with us. My brother Tim, he's no longer with us. But I grew up in those stories. I was too young to be in the venues.
Okay.
But I grew up in the stories with how the whole hip to hop dancing started. So what they would do, right? I think this is probably prior to the whole gang culture, or during the beginning, because the gang culture here and hip hop, kind of went together, but the party scenes real crazy, like the whole black and Latino thing. We was always family in the Bronx,
True.
There was never racial stuff. It was always about turf and women. You get what I'm saying? So it wasn't never like no real racial thing. It was always a Latino fusion. And so I used to hear the stories about how the whole hip hop dancing started. Those particular brothers that I mentioned, my brothers included, they started dancing, but they was emulating knife fights. They were emulating fighting with knives and making different moves and things like that. And then they started getting that into the whole dance thing. And, from what I understand, Kool Herc would be he was the first one to use the term B-boy, or at least in that area, in that region, and the Shaft, I never been in there, but I remember seeing it growing up. That was down on Westchester Avenue on 163rd.
True. Yep.
So yeah, and then they had places like the Hevalo and all that. Then that evolved into Disco Fever and Club 371. but 371 was more like it wasn't that hip hoppy. It was, you know, to me anyway, it was a little more easygoing. You know what I mean? But you walk into the Fever, man, them beats be hitting you in the head. You know, I was like 14, 15. I thought I was thugging out, man. Coming there, that music be thumping. Your grill automatically changed, like.
All right, so you are at the forefront and you are at the root of what has become a global phenomenon, hip hop.
Yeah, I was. I actually had an opportunity, right, that I blew because of the streets. My boy, Tim, we call him Tim Dog. He used to play the drums for Nice and Smooth.
Damn.
He asked me to come down because him and I used to go back and forth on the musical tip. You know,
Yeah.
I wanted to be a singer. That was my first aspiration.
Okay.
And I had a little skills, you know, a little falsetto skills. And he had asked me to come down and drop something, you know, and I was sleeping on it because I thought I was doing something slick on the streets. He asked me to come down and do something with Nice and Smooth. You know, this is before they started, you know, doing their thing. And, you know, a lot of people don't know that's a real drum line in their music. That's a real drummer with Nice and Smooth. That's my man Tim. I haven't seen him in years. I wish him well. I hope he's all okay, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would have probably been an end, you know. And like I said, like singing was something I always aspired to do. I was involved with a group, and I'll never forget. I was real young at the time, and we went down to RCA Studios at the time in Manhattan, and they wanted to rock with me, and my mom shut it down, and I'm glad she did. No, I'm glad she did, bro, because you know we know things now about the industry that. You know, I probably, So, and I was young. I mean, I was real young.
Yeah.
You know, and I got before some folks, and they was like, "You're too young. Your voice gonna change." So I never got, you know, a part of that to be a part of that platform. So I guess in a nutshell, to answer the question, entertainment was always something, you know, that I aspired, that I loved doing, but I never would have thought it'd be comedy.
So let's get into that. So being a part of all of that, you know what I mean? Hip hop at its inception, you know, you say Cool Herc.
Yeah, Cool Herc. You know.
So you're around.
But I wasn't
around all of that, right?
I was around it, but I wasn't a part of it. You follow me? I was watching it. I was young. I was too young. You know.
So you transitioned and you kind of like pivoted and said, you know what, I'm not gonna be an MC over a beat, but I'm gonna be an MC where I'm gonna perform for a crowd. But instead of like spitting lyrics, I'm gonna tell jokes. Tell me when that became like something that you honestly thought that you can make it in that field. What was the point where you said, you know, I ain't gonna be no rapper, I'm not gonna be a producer, I'm not gonna be a b-boy, but I could be a comedian. I could tell jokes and I could do this well. Tell me that story.
And in my most humble honesty, I never thought it. Let me tell you what happened. You know, I always been like I said, I grew up, you know, my brothers was hilarious. If you can remember In Living Color when they used to do that whole jail thing, you know, my brothers was doing that years before they did.
Okay.
And had us in tears. So this is what I grew up around, snapping and dozens and all that. I grew up around all that. So I instantaneously, my parents were funny. So I always had a sense of humor, you know, and I never really, you know, thought of it as much. And what happened with me is, like, my homies, right, always, I never said I was funny. My people around me always said I was funny. Okay. You see? So, you know, one time we was in a venue and they was having a gong show. And my boy, Anthony Quick, right? That's my man. He probably still around. He was signing me up for this gong show. And I got up there and they gonged me. And that's when my comedy career started. And let me tell you how. Cursed the whole audience out. And they laughed. They laughed hysterically. I was tight, you know? But that laughter, bruh, when I felt that laughter, I was all in. I was like, wow, the energy from, you know, just making somebody laugh and making them feel, even though I made a fool of myself,
Yeah.
you know, I looked beyond that and I was like, this is something, you know, to hear this laughter just generate throughout the room. And that's when it all started for me.
How old were you
You
then?
know? Oh, I was man, I don't even know. I was an adult, you know. Had kids and everything at the time. I think I was in my mid-20s or something like that. You know? So
All right, so you find a silver lining in a effed up situation where most people might have said, you know what, first experience, they're horrible.
yeah.
I'm gonna try and figure something else out. You decide like, yo, I'm gonna dig in deeper, and I'm gonna really commit myself to that. So from that situation being gone, tell me how you developed telling jokes and how and what the thought process was in making it into a career.
I grew up in Forest and my oldest brother was married to one of the Brown brothers' cousins, right? And so the Brown brothers' cousins lived in Forest. And I don't know how it happened. You know, the whole thing is rather spiritual, if you ask me, right? So I stopped and I had to talk. I had to talk. Avery is his name. Me and Avery was speaking, and he was like, "Yo, you know, my cousins they run the Uptown. I hadn't heard about no Uptown Comedy Club. You know, this was after that whole thing had happened, and I had aspirations for comedy, but I didn't know where to go. You know, and he invited me to go down to the Uptown Comedy Club, and on a Sunday night, and I went down, you know, and just sat there and I was watching the shows. It was Flex, you know, Alexander, Uncle Jimmy Mack, Hamburger, Cool Bubba Ice. You know, there was some of the veteran dudes that started before me that were performing there, and I was pretty intrigued. And they had a workshop, right? So they invited me to the workshop. Couldn't feel the workshop, to be all honest. You know, be honest with you, it was like, you know, I don't know, man. I'm just like a loner kind of dude. You know what I mean? So I went to one and I went to another one. But the Brown brothers, you know, I was cool with them. They was some cool dudes, you know. And then I considered them like, you know, family. You know, once they found out who I was, and you know, you had Andre Brown and Kevin Brown. Andre was the dude that I was kind of dealing with. Kevin was kind of, you know, he was bossing it, but he was like on the side, not as much interaction, you know. And one day, I was walking up the steps, right, and because it was the National Black Theater, and it was this long stairwell, right, and it's actually on the side of the National Black Theater. And it was this long stairwell, and I was walking up the steps, and a lady was coming down, and she was like, "I'm looking for a comedian," you know. I said, "A comedian?" Now I wasn't. What makes you professional is getting paid. When you start collecting money, that makes you professional, you know. Yeah. And she said, "I need a comedian." So I was like, "Dang, what do I do?" And then I was with a young lady, I think at the time. She was like, "Take the job," you know. And I said, "Well, okay, I'm a comedian. Right? Never performed, you know, professionally, right?" Yeah. And I said, "Well, how much the job?" She said, $50. And I was like, you know, damn, that was some good money for, like, you know, 15 minutes work back then, you know?
Yeah.
So I said, you know what? I'll do it. You know? No, as a matter of fact, the girl I was with said, he'll do it, right? And she told me where it was. It was actually right next door to where the Red Rooster is right now. And she was having a party or something, and I went in there, and I did my first set, man, you know? I don't think it was nothing to brag about, but I got over, you know? So, you know, the thing with comedy, man, is personality. You know what I mean? If you don't have personality, you can't possibly get into somebody's, you know, innards and make them laugh. I just always had that kind of personality, you know, by the grace of the Most High, where I was just that kind of dude, like unpredictable, don't know what I'm going to say or do. And I went in that joint and I made myself $50. That was my first professional gig.